Hello everyone, welcome to Legal Darshan. In today's video, we are going to discuss few new theories, few new concepts with respect to sociological thought of criminology, and we are going to discuss social control, social disorganization, anomie, and strain theory to understand how society is attributable for the crime. So it has been a very frequent discussion that when we study a school of thought, it is either individual centric or it is either society centric. So this has been a discussion so far in our previous discussion where we discussed acres, where we discussed Sutherland, that society causes crimes. There are some events attributable to the society when a person might take some approach and becomes a criminal and get involved in criminal activities. So when we have theories like psychodynamic theory and we have other theories which focuses on individuals will to become a criminal or individual desire to commit crime, will theory, etc., there are also theories that advocates that it is not the individual but rather the society that induces crime. It is the structure of the society, it is the social fabric of the society that sometimes is responsible for inducing crime in the society. Now when we look at Sutherland and Akers, which we were doing previously, it also it focused on that it is the learning in the society by which a person is turning into individual, right? It is what he is learning from his peers, from his close intimate groups, from imitation, whatever he is seeing in the TV, in the movies. Akers was saying about imitation, right? He becomes the criminal, he takes the modes which are criminal in nature. So criminal behavior is learned was the prime focus of the previous discussion that we did with respect to Sutherland and with respect to Akers. Now we come to another segment of sociological thought, which is talking of social control, which is talking of social disorganization, which is talking of anomie and strain, right? Now, in this particular theories, one thing is common, that they are majorly focusing on the status of the society, on how society is taking its shape that is influencing crime. So society becomes the focus, society becomes the center of focus in this particular discussion. Whereas when we were doing other theories, especially when I'm talking of sociological schools, especially when I'm talking of Sutherland and Akers, they are basically providing that it is the individual who is choosing the society. It is an individual who is making a choice to learn the crime, to imitate the crime, right? But in these theories, we are focusing on how there are structural changes in the society. What are the changes that that are present in the society which adds to contribute, which contributes, adds or contributes to commission of crime in the society, right? Now moving to the first theory, it is the social control theory given by Travis Hershey. And Travis Hershey is a sociologist who is talking about social control. Now, basically, this theory focuses on your connections. We are not talking of how you are inspired by your intimate groups, but it is basically talking about social bonds. Okay. So when your social bonds are weak, when you do not have friends, when you do not have an attachment with your family or maybe with your peers, then when these bonds are broken and you will tend to commit crime, there will be deviance in you. You can observe deviance in you. Okay, deviance is basically you are diverting from the idea that a community, a society follows, right? So a civilized society follows the idea of peace, of non-violence. But when you have weakened social bonds, maybe you will move more towards the idea of deviance, maybe more towards the idea of holding a rebellion against the society. And that's what social control theory is saying, that crime occurs when social bonds are weakened or they are broken. Okay, so it describes four bonds, four kind of social bonds, four elements of social bonds, which Travis Hershey is exploring. And the first one is attachment. Okay, so when you are attached to your family, when you are attached to your peers, to your friends, you might not consider committing crime because it might bring shame to them, right? Then another is commitment. So we often say that a man should always be a man of his words. Okay, he is a man of his words, that he upkeeps the commitments. Okay, so when you have some commitments to conventional goals, for example, commitment to your parents that I will give you a luxurious life, commitment to your spouse that I am going to cater your needs, commitment to your children that I am going to give you a good upbringing. So when you are having those commitments, your mind will not go towards deviance or you will not commit the crime, right? And then third is involvement in legitimate activities. So when you are involved in legitimate activities, when you have close peer circle, you have close groups. For example, you are involved in a lot of kitty parties, or maybe a lot of public gatherings. You are a part of a discussion group, you are a part of the society that is affiliated with some NGO, you are doing some legitimate activities, then also you have some kind of social bonds present around you, and you might not take the idea of diverting yourself from them and going beyond them. Then fourth is belief, that apart from all these four traits, you have attachment, you have commitments, you are involved in good deeds, in legitimate activities, and then there is a moral validity of these norms, that this is how the society functions, this is how a civilized society functions, and that is how I should be. That your norms are being morally validated by your belief system, by your moral system, right? So when these elements exist, we can say that there is strong bonding, social cohesion exists there, and you will not be more deviant, right? So basically, if I have to sum up Travis Hershey in one line, he says that when you have stronger bonds, there is less deviance, because you have purposes to achieve, to fulfill your commitments, or to be in your involvements, etc. And when these bonds are weakened, okay, somebody, somebody might not have a very good familial relationship, somebody is lacking friendship, somebody is lacking that social cohesion. So when that bonds weakens, there is more deviance. Okay, so maybe sometimes we come across a lot of movies, a lot of documentaries wherein a juvenile is committing crime because he was not he was not satisfied by the love and conditioning that his guardians were offering him. Okay, so social control theory often explains juvenile delinquency, right? That to validate themselves. So when you have good social bonds, you are often validated. So if I have good friends, I have family who is taking care of me, right? I have a strong social cohesion. I will feel as a valued member of the community. I will feel as a valued member of the society, right? But when these social bonds are weakened, you have nobody to be accountable to, you have nobody to be answerable to, you go into deviance and you commit crime to be validated by your peers or to be validated by your own self, right? So this particular concept explains juvenile delinquency to us, that in need of validation, in need of wanting what they have not got, kids often tends to commit crime. And this particular theory substantiates that how juvenile delinquency happens in a civilized society, right? So if you have a strengthened social ties, you are caring for your reputation, for your people you are attached to, then in that case it might help you as a crime prevention method also. Now there is one more thing, okay? So if you have strengthened social ties, that facilitates crime prevention. But can social ties become a reason of crime? The answer is yes, because your attachment often lures you into committing crimes of passion. Okay, so sometimes you often do crimes for passion, to gain the attachment, or for your loved ones, you may get involved into the crime. So that comes out as one of the drawbacks of this particular theory, right? Now, this particular theory is also emphasizing that informal social mechanism, informal social cohesion is more valuable, right? If you have good peers, if you are in good social bonds, then you might not do crime. Okay, so emphasis is lying more on social mechanisms rather than the legal enforcement, right? So if there is a society in which social cohesion exists, this theory advocates that there will be minimal crime rate, the crime will be prevented as well, right? So this is the social control theory, that having a good social bond, having a good social cohesion prevents crime, because then you will have another things to cater to. For example, catering to the needs of your loved ones, your involvement in legitimate activities, and a morally sound belief system. You will validate the norms around you, and you will not show deviance, right? Now, moving ahead, we have the next theory, which is social disorganization. Okay. Now, in social disorganization theory, what basically we understand is, as the word disorganization is suggesting itself. Okay. So, a society which is disorganized. Okay. There is a breakdown in the society due to various factors. Various factors can arise, and a society might undergo disorganization, right? So, basically, disorganization is that community structures break down, when community structures are breaking down, there is an informal weakening of social control and community cohesion. People are falling apart. Now, when people fall apart, they often tend to come into various groups. So once this is a society which is organized, when it falls apart because of any reasons, we are going to come to reasons in a little while. So because of any reasons, if a society is falling apart, it falls apart in various communities, right? It forms apart in subgroups, right? Which is giving rise to ethnic heterogeneity. Okay. And that way a society gets disorganized. Now, why a society undergoes disorganization? It could be because of poverty. It could also be because of residential mobility, that people are migrating from one particular place to another particular place. Okay, so we can see social disorganization being one of the highlights when partition happened. Okay, so society was basically disorganized when Indo-Pak partition happened during the times of independence. Okay, so it is basically that it is not that you are just violating the social rules. It is not the basic violation of social rules or deviance, but it is because when society is disorganized because of maybe reasons such like poverty, maybe unplanned regions. Okay, then what happens is that there arises subgroups, there arises cultural lag, and that causes to commission of crime in the society so that people can meet the ends of their needs. Okay, now basically, so what happens in social disorganization is that it might happen because of poverty, it might happen because of residential mobility. Okay, you do not have places to live, so you are migrating places. Now, there is one example, Kanpur city planning case we often study when we studied social disorganization. So in Kanpur, when Kanpur was an unplanned city, there was a higher crime rate reported because there was no planning. People were poor and people were fighting. People were craving for residences, people were craving for habitats, and because they could not have those habitats, what happened was crime rate increased. Now, keeping in mind Kanpur was planned, the city moved towards urbanization, and when the planning was completed, there was allocation of houses, there was rehabilitation of the people desiring residence, the crime rate significantly dropped. Okay, so we can also see that during partition there was a disorganization in the society. People were poor at that time as well, right? Now, once you curb the disorganization, you can achieve the legal state, or you can achieve the lawful state of the particular region. And that's what social disorganization theory is also saying. Now, social disorganization theory is also saying that once in a particular place, because of residential mobility, once in a particular place, if there arises ethnic heterogeneity, okay, so one group is advocating for X kind of norms, another group advocate for Y kind of norms, there appears a state of normlessness. There appears a there appears a vacuum where you do not actually have norms, which norms to follow, whether I stick to norm X or norm Y. So that also make happen when a society is in the state of disorganization. Because why a society is disorganizing? Because there is a community there is a breakdown in community structures, right? And when there is a breakdown in community structure, automatically there is going to be an absence of regulation. So when ethnic heterogeneity arises, when subgrouping happens, so subcultures may form. You can deviate, you can also say that X norm should be there or Y norm should be there, and that arises to weakening of social regulations, and that gives rises to further occurrence of crime, right? The scholars, they have also observed that cultural lag also sometimes add to disorganization in the society. So when we were in the era of globalization, rapid technology was coming in, industrialization was happening, but we were not able, the human earlier was not able to cope up with the growing technology, with the growing industrialization. So in that manner also cultural lag may subsist, and a person may go into deviance, person may exhibit deviance. Okay, so deviance can be observed in the regions which get socially disorganized. So this particular theory suggests that whenever there is disorganization in a society, it becomes the hotbed of deviance. Okay, deviance is most likely to occur there because the cohesion gets weak. Now, if we compare social disorganization to the social control is saying a similar kind of thing, that to prevent crime, social cohesion should be there. And when we see we see the sequitur in social disorganization theory, that once the society breaks down, once the community structure or social structure of the society breaks down, it adds to causation of crime. And that is one of the reasons that social disorganization theory we are studying in criminology. These are core essential concepts of sociology, but when we link it to criminology, we need to understand how social disorganization is contributing to causation of crime, right? Now, next we come to, these are small concepts that we deal with when we study criminology. Now, please be mindful that this is a discussion specifically with respect to criminology. These are whole wide discussions when we do it in the sociology regime. But since we are doing it for the criminology purpose, we are limiting only to the causation of crime. Now, when we come to Durkheim's anomie, okay, so Emile Durkheim, he talks about the concept of anomie. Now he says that anomie is the state of normlessness. Okay, it is the state. So we see that when we were talking of social control, we were talking about social cohesion, people and their peers. Okay, me and my friends, my family, or my peers. Okay, when we move to social disorganization, we moved a little more towards how society is disorganizing. Now, there can be many reasons due to which a society disorganizes. There can be reasons like partition, there can be reasons like poverty, there can be reasons like mobility, residential mobility, etc. Now, when we come to the concept of anomie, anomie has been given by two sociologists. One is Durkheim, another is Merton. Okay, so Merton's anomie vary a little bit from the Durkheim's anomie. We are coming to it in the next discussion. But when we talk of anomie, it is the state of normlessness. Now, when we moved from discussion on social control to disorganization, and now we are moving to anomie, we are understanding that it is first the individual in the classical school and in the biological school, the Italian school also. Then it was the individual in the Freud theory. When we came to Sutherland, it was individual who is choosing his society. And when we move to social control, social disorganization, we move to society's contribution to commission of crime. But now when we are moving to anomie, and when we will move to Marxist theory of criminology, Marxist thought of criminology in the next discussion, we will understand that how we are getting from an individual centric approach to the state centric approach, that how the lack of normlessness on the part of state, on the part of governing body also is adding to commission of crime. And then we come up to the last thought, which is the radical thought, which says that there can be state sponsored crimes as well. Okay, now when we look at the anomie, so this is the hierarchy. Individual, we move from individual to society, society to state and governing bodies, that how state sponsored crimes are also there. Okay, so these all theories are paving the way for the discussion when state-sponsored crime will be discussed. Okay. Now, when we talk of Durkheim's anomie is defined as the state of normlessness. Okay. So he describes that it is the institutional failure to regulate the desires and the behavior of the individual. Okay. So basically, these the theory suggests that when the collective norms are weak, okay, when the society, when the institutions, they fail to regulate the people, their expectations and their experiences, state of normlessness arises, and therefore anomie arises. Okay, so it says that it activates, the anomie majorly activates in the period of upheaval or instability. Okay, so maybe when there is economic depression, anomie may be activated. Okay, because there will be a state of normlessness. So we have provisions like financial emergency, etc. When there is a state of economic depression, that can be put into. That is just an extra discussion anyway. So he basically says that when rapid social or economic changes happen, for example, economic depression, right? What happens is that experiences do not meet expectation, and therefore, because of state of normlessness due to the rapid change that is coming in, so experiences of people do not meet the expectation of people, and therefore there is a state of helplessness, and people tend to commit crime. Now, who is basically controlling the affairs of state? Who is responsible for the normlessness? It is the state itself, being the guardian. And it is the individual who is taking a decision for himself because of that rapid sudden economic change, because of the failure of institutions to regulate his desires and behavior, because of the failure of the institutions to to the extent that his experience is not meeting his expectation in that state of normlessness. Okay, now basically this particular theory focuses on the fact that sometimes in the state of normlessness resulting from rapid social changes or economic changes, the moral fabric of the society, moral structure of the society is unable to contain the individual impulses. So maybe there can be a surge in the economy. Okay, there can be inflation when the prices of basic necessities go on hike, and a person is unable to sustain himself or his family, and he may choose to do the suicide, to commit the suicide. Okay, so majorly Anomie was focusing on the suicide because Durkheim famously, sociologists, people who are studying sociology, they know that Durkheim's famous work is study on suicide. Okay, so he studied suicidal rates, and he found his work was revolving around suicide mainly when we talk of Anomie. And he basically said that anomic suicide occurs when social regulation is weak, such as during economic depression or sudden prosperity. People are not able to handle their experiences, and their expectations are often not met, and they choose to commit the anomic suicide because there is a state of normlessness. Okay, so this is what anomie is in the eyes of Durkheim, and that's how it contributes to crime. Specific reference is on suicide as an offense in this particular theory. Now, when we move ahead, we come to the Merton strain. So Merton is building on the idea of Durkheim, and he is saying that anomie is anomie in the words of Merton is the strain when is the strain that comes on people when there is a gap between institutional means and cultural goals. Okay, so basically Merton says that society or the culture, okay, society or the culture, it is setting certain goals for us. It is setting certain goals for us, which are the cultural goals. Okay, so these cultural goals could be I am having a car, I am having a good house, I am having a good income, I'm happy, I am taking my family out on dinner. If you can say about cultural goals, I am studying in a reputed institution, I am having degrees, etc. Like financial gains, like economic gains, and status, reputation. These are some examples of the cultural goals, right? So now Merton says that there is a strain on an individual when he is unable to meet the cultural goals, and the institutional means does not support that particular cultural goals, that he goes and claim those cultural goals. Okay, now he says that when there is a gap between institutional means and the cultural goals, which means that institutional means of achieving those cultural goals are insufficient for him to achieve the cultural goals, then in that case he undergoes strain, and that situation of strain is known as anomie in the words of Merton. Okay, so he says that in our society, okay, in our society the achievable is cultural goals, and there can be institutional means. Okay, so for example, if I want to earn the institutional mean, if I want to earn 10 lakh rupees per annum, the institutional means is that I would take a good job, I would study hard, I would do internships, I would take experience, and then I would go into a top tier firm or maybe apply and get a good job that pays me 10 lakh per month. Another way is maybe I can go and clear some government exam which is in grade A or grade B, and I will get that particular cultural goal that I am achieving 10 lakhs per annum, which makes me come into a respectable position. Okay, now basically these institutional means are such means which are acceptable means. Okay, and cultural goals are which the culture is setting, which the society is setting. Okay, now basically How do we adapt to them? Do you think that everybody thinks that this is my cultural goal and this is the means I have to take to achieve it? So the goal is, for example, to earn 10 lakhs. There can be multiple way of earning 10 lakhs. You can go into a government service. You can go into a private service. Okay, you can do business, or maybe you can gamble also. I'm not talking of institutional means. I'm just talking of how do you achieve these 10 lakhs. Okay, maybe you can do gambling. Maybe you can do any act which is illegal in nature. Maybe you can do betting. Okay, and maybe you can, go into cryptocurrency and achieve 10 lakh rupees. Okay, maybe you can do trading. Okay, so there are many means by which you are going to achieve those 10 lakh rupees per annum. Now, some means which are accepted, these are the institutional means. But would everyone choose a path of institutional means? That is not fixed. Okay, we need to go into that. So how do every person, interact with these institutional means and these cultural goals is a discussion that Mertons undertake. And he says that when everyone adapts to these institutional means and these cultural goals, we are basically taking 5 modes of adaptation. So first is conformity. Now, in conformity, an individual is sticking to cultural goals and he is also sticking to institutional means. He is saying that this is the path to take it. I have to enter into a private service. I have to enter into a top tier firm and I'm going to make 10 lakhs per month. So he is matching a cultural goal. He is taking an institutional mean to reach it. Okay. But he is not concerned whether he will be able to make it or not. So maybe he can go through rounds of interviews and he will not be able to make it, but he is saying that I will conform to what societal norms is. I will conform to what institutional means are, okay, to achieve that cultural goal. So in the status, in the adapting status in conformity, he is not worried that whether he will be able to achieve the cultural goal or not, but rather he is concerned that I am opting for an institutional means. I might achieve that cultural goal or I might not achieve that cultural goal, right? Now, next is innovation. So innovation is basically that you see the cultural goal. The goal is important to you, but you can deviate from the institutional mean. So you might take a new path to achieve that institutional mean. Okay. Then we come to ritualism. So ritualism is you are not at all concerned with the cultural goal. You are just performing your duty in the institutional means. Okay. So you are just doing the duties. You are just taking the path that everyone else is doing this. I will also do this. Let's see where it goes. Okay. So conformity is you're accepting the institutional means to reach the goals. Okay. You are accepting it. Cultural goals, you are not sure if you will be able to make it or not. Innovation is you accept the cultural goals and but you want to take some other means which are not institutional in nature. Okay. Ritualism is you are very well versed with the institutional means and you want to take that up, but on cultural goals you are not concerned at all. So you are just doing your part of the duty irrespective whether you will reach the cultural goal or not. That is not even in your consideration. Then when we talk of retreatism, so retreatism is that a person says that I don't care about cultural goals and I don't also care about the institutional needs. I don't care about either. So for him, neither he wants to achieve the cultural goal, neither he wants to achieve the institutional means, to achieve it through the institutional means. Okay. So maybe retreatism can happen, when a person becomes a drug addict, when he does not care what he is doing. Okay. So, he withdraws from the norms of the society, and that might lead him into the crimes of gambling, that might lead him into the crimes like drink and drive, because he's addicted to alcohol because he is withdrawn from the cultural goals. He does not see that he does not want to achieve the cultural goals, neither he want to take the institutional means for it. So he is rejecting both of them. Then rebellion. So rebellion is the stage when you discard, when you don't acknowledge, okay, when you say that I don't accept that this should be the cultural goal, I don't accept that this should be the institutional means to achieve it, okay, so you are rejecting both. You are basically rejecting the idea of why a cultural goal is even existing, why this particular kind of cultural goal is even existing, why is this a cultural goal, why is not a cultural goal. So rebellion, as the name suggests, you want to go against the settled norms of the society, settled norm of the culture, and you transpire rebellion because you reject the cultural goals, and when you are rejecting the cultural goals, the institutional means become insignificant for you, okay. Retreatism is that you take the step back, you know, do not, you are not concerned what cultural goals are or what institutional means are. Rebellion is you are rejecting them, okay. In retreatism, you are taking the retreat back, you are getting back, you are going away from them, you are not rejecting them, you are not concerned with either of institutional means or cultural goals. But in rebellion, you are basically rejecting the idea of cultural goal. Why is this a cultural goal and why is not a cultural goal? And you want to substitute new goals in place of already existing one, okay. Now when we talk of innovation, innovation is often linked with crime because you want to achieve these 10 lakhs, but you also don't want to go through the institutional means of the of achieving those goals because you want to achieve them quickly, okay. So when I want to achieve 10 lakh rupees, I might go and gamble. I know it's illegal, and I might go and gamble and I will get those 10 lakh rupees, okay. So that's how I vary from institutional means to achieve the cultural goals, and in order I commit the crime, okay. So this is the theory of Merton's strain. So this strain that comes on the people, he, Durkheim, Durkheim's anomie was normlessness, and Merton's anomie is the strain that is coming on people because of gap in institutional means and cultural goals. And when they follow the path of innovation to achieve those cultural goals, they might exhibit deviance and they might tend to commit crime. This is the idea which Merton's strain theory is proposing. So when there arises strain on an individual, when he is not able to meet his expectation in the words of Durkheim, and cultural goals in the terms of Merton, and he will often be lured into taking the way of innovation, and he will, ultimately lead, it will ultimately lead to commission of crime, okay. So these are the concepts on social disorganization, Merton anomie, and Durkheim's anomie, and also the social control. Now, these theory, if you look, they're complementing each other, placing the role on society, how society is inducing crime, how society is leaving some people in the state of normlessness. Okay, it is unable to meet, unable to contain the individual impulses, and therefore disorganization, anomie, and strain. These are explaining why individuals are doing certain kind of offenses, because certain conditions are being created in which they are opting for committing the crimes, okay. Now social control theory, however, it explains that how will you prevent crime when you strengthen the social bonds. It is placing emphasis on informal social cohesion as a tool for social control, for controlling the crime, for controlling the crime rate, okay. So these four theories were the part of discussion today. In the next theory, we will move to the Marxist and Bonger's thought of criminology, which is dealing more with the economic thought, and completing. So we will move towards the radical thought of criminology. I hope the discussion was useful for you. For any feedback, for any suggestion, any questions, anything you want us to cover, you may reach out to us at legaldarshan@gmail.com, or you can drop your feedbacks in the comment box below. Thank you for staying. Please stay tuned with Legal Darshan. Have a great day.